In various parts of the country, including in Rajasthan, there have been protests against the central government's Agnipath scheme. With me right now is Sachin Pilot, who is not just a politician but also a captain currently serving in the Territorial Army. Mr. Pilot, you are the third generation in your family who has served the country through armed forces. How do you look at this Agnipath scheme brought in by the central government, against which there have been protests in several parts of the nation?
You see, there are many reasons why young people are agitated. First being that for 2 years there have been no recruitments in the army. COVID was the reason, but now the lockdown is not there. They should start recruitment processes. Second, people feel that maybe there will never be any further recruitment at all. And this Agnipath is the only way to join the services, which is only a 4-year program, out of which after 4 years, 3/4 of them will be made redundant, so to say. The government says they'll be absorbed, but who knows what the future lies. Of a Sainik or a Fauji in the unit or in the platoon works on a certain training and certain commitment, certain devotion, certain self-sacrifice and certain comradeship with his troops. I don't think 4 years is enough to build that trust. And at that young, tender age, mind is impressionable. 17 to 21, and if you get, let's say, shunted out after 4 years, then what does one do? Recruitment in the paramilitary forces, anyway, there is a backlog. So it's not that simple to say that you will be taken care of. These are all assurances, but young people are fearful that we don't know what the future holds. How do you expect a young man to get trained within 6 months, go into combat zones, take a fight, face the bullet, knowing that his future is uncertain?
But the government
levels. And let me tell you, it's not just about money. It's about commitment, motivation. There is a certain emotion involved in belonging to a battalion, a platoon and a battalion. That emotion, that training, it takes time for that to happen. And also, don't forget, people also are fearful that because the government has not done recruitment for the last 2 years, they're quite worried about the pension bills. Maybe they will stop recruitment altogether, and this Agnipath will be the only source of getting into the services. And after 4 years, you have nowhere to go. So it's, I think, not that well thought out. They should have started gradually, had a pilot project, seen the side effects of it. We have a tense border on both Pakistan and China. Our country, our forces, are second to none. The Indian Armed Forces, the valor, the sacrifice, the bravery is renowned in the world. We can't let anything lower the morale of our Jawans. We can't let doubt and fear enter those minds. And the young people of India want jobs. I mean, it's not just about money. It's about the pride. Rajasthan sends the maximum number of soldiers to the army. And I know every village, this गांव में एक भर्ती होती है, पूरा गांव अपने आप को, they feel so proud. So I think we have to understand the reality of rural India. And usme, who are the people who go to these services? It's not city folks. It's not policymakers and bureaucrats. It's the farmers' kids and बच्चे पोते किसानों पे जाते हैं. So Jawan and Kisan, there's a bond and a relationship that is true in every sense of the word. So this policy, I think, has been done very, very quickly without giving it a thought, and that's why there is now widespread protest all over the country. I think nobody should indulge in violence, but young people need to be assured and reassured that there is the avenues of getting into the armed forces. It's a matter of pride, not just earning salaries. And I think the armed forces need also to do it gradually so that people are able to understand what the process is.
Mr. Pilot, the BJP has alleged that a large section of the youth has welcomed this decision and that the Congress, led by Rahul Gandhi, has been orchestrating or backing these protests.
I think that's uncharitable. I don't think the Congress party was involved in instigating any protest. It was quite sporadic, and it's the same thing they said about the farm laws. They put the farm laws saying that it's in the interest of the farmers, and the farmers for 2 years agitated, no? Now they're saying this is good for young people, but young people are agitating. जिनके लिए policy बना रहे हो, if they are agitating, then please understand what is wrong.
But the government has brought in this additional change in the policy, that claiming that the age has been extended to 23 years. Do you think that will help pacify the protests?
But this is an afterthought. It's a knee-jerk reaction to the response the protesters are making the government give.
Do you demand a complete withdrawal of the scheme?
I think they should put in abeyance, have a rethink, talk to all stakeholders, do it gradually. I understand the pension bill is very high. It's 20% of a defense budget. How to curtail that? Indian Army is beyond party and governments. It is there for all. It's a pride for all of us. So it's not about Congress, BJP. It's about how do we keep the morale high? How do we keep our forces technologically and in terms of proficiency, one of the best in the world. But this particular scheme, I think, is being objected to by the young people because they feel their future is at stake. No, sirf 4 saal ke liye you're putting us through this. What happens after that? Like I said, there is a huge backlog in the paramilitary forces, in the state police forces, and in the army. Why don't they first fill up the backlogs and then talk about fresh recruitment?
Several of the protesters also feel that, when it comes to their own pensions and salaries, the lawmakers are willing to, give themselves a hike at several points in time. But when it comes to the youth who have been looking forward to getting into the army, and it has been a dream for them for several years, then the government wants to change the entire structure in a haphazard manner. How do you respond to that?
I think that point is not misplaced. It's true. The Indian Army and the Indian Armed Forces have developed over the last 7 decades. And all of us, we may have different political opinions, but we hold the Indian Army at the top of our minds. So, but this particular scheme, I think somehow this policy initiative has backfired because the implementation was abrupt, without discussion, and it is limiting the options for young people to become part of the Indian Armed Forces. So people fear that there will be no more further recruitments except on this particular avenue. And this also, when they've changed now, abhi 2 saal badha diya hai, as a knee-jerk reaction, that points out that there's not a well thought out policy. They should have given it more time, done a pilot project, studied the side effects and what the cost benefit analysis they should have done, and then gone ahead with it. So today the first thing is they must assure the young people, give them jobs elsewhere. See, it's not about getting a government job or a private job. The armed forces job is not just about earning salary. It's about putting a life at risk every day of your life. So it is certain level of emotion and connectivity that you have to have with your motherland, with your peers, that has to be developed. And I think 4 years is far too short for that.
One last question, Mr. Pilot. Do you think the way the Congress sustained its campaign against the Modi government on the issue of ED sending notices to your leaders, the Congress will also take it to the roads when it comes to the issue of the youth protesting against Agnipath scheme?
You see, I have said this many times. I believe anyone who indulges in violence or takes law into their own hands, one cannot support that. At the same time, the Congress party, as a main opposition party, when you say we were protesting against the blatant misuse of the institutions, political pressure on the agencies to target opposition leaders. I think it's a fair point for people to know. And this particular issue also, the Congress party made its stand very clear yesterday in Delhi, and we'll continue to support all those young people who want jobs and opportunities. And we must inform the government, pressurize the government, have a rethink. Don't be in that sense of arrogance, implement this policy and then put millions of people's future at stake.
So clearly the young Congress leader maintaining that this policy called the Agnipath scheme has been brought in abruptly, without giving it a thought, without taking the youth into confidence, and claims that the Narendra Modi government should ensure that a stop is put on the scheme with immediate effect. With camera person Manish, Devankur Vadhavan in Jaipur for India Today.